Argentina got rid of its black population. Are you getting that from a book or Twitter? During Argentina's War of Independence, thousands of black men fought in the army, and they were promised their freedom in exchange of military service. Then came decades of civil wars, followed by the War of the Triple Alliance, which claimed the lives of men of fighting age. On top of that, epidemics like the yellow fever and cholera devastated the poorest neighborhoods where many Afro-Argentines lived because of unequal living conditions. In 1813, Argentina passed the Freedom of Wombs Law, meaning that children that were born to enslaved women were legally free. By 1853, Argentina officially abolished slavery, meaning that anyone who came to the country as an enslaved person was legally free. So did black Argentines disappear? No, that's a lie. Over the time, Afro-Argentines increasingly married people from different backgrounds. They were no longer considered as a different racial category, so they became more integrated to society. Also, massive European immigration changed the country's overall demographics, reducing the percentage of Afro-descendants in Argentina, not eliminating them. Today, according to Argentina's 22 national census, more than 300,000 Argentines identify as Afro-descendants, meaning that a lot of people is black and they don't even know. Please, let's stop comparing how black people look like in the US versus Argentina, because let's remember that the US had like 100 years more of segregation where they had to use different bathrooms, different school, different public transportation, and in Argentina that never existed. So it was easier for black people to integrate into society, and that's why everyone just got mixed.
I am proud of being an Argentinian, but it's really hard for me because I always have to explain why I'm black.
Argentina has built its identity on whiteness, but Afro-Argentines are pushing to restore the country's black history that the government has largely suppressed.
There was a discourse of genocide because governments say that we don't exist. Schools erase us from history. So Argentina is said to be white, to be culturally and to look white, phenotypically white. So that's why it was discursed, because we are still here.
In the 18th century, large populations of Afro-descendants were present in Argentina. In fact, hundreds of thousands of enslaved African people were forcibly taken there, long before the biggest waves of European migration in the country. But many of them say the country has built a national identity rooted in whiteness, making it hard to identify as a person of color.
People think that we don't exist. Argentine people ask us where we were born. Not only in Argentina. If I go to Brazil, if I go to Uruguay, if I go to the US, people don't believe my nationality. They don't believe I'm an Argentinian. It's horrible because I don't feel, or people don't make me feel as I am part of the country.
In 1778, black people made up about 37% of Buenos Aires. But by 1887, city records showed black people making up less than 2% of the city's population. Now that's not because they left or disappeared, but because the government stopped including race in its collection of census data. Race wasn't even included as a census category again until 2010. Many Afro-descendants were reclassified or absorbed into mixed categories. Ali says these racial categories blurred black identity over time.
There was a really important racial category that's called trigueño, that means from the color of the wheat. That helped black people to find a window to escape blackness, because why would you choose to be black in a country that oppresses you for being black?
But a younger generation is reclaiming Afro-Argentine identity, pushing for visibility and recognition.
If Argentina would reckon its Black history, there would be some big changes. We would know that one of our first presidents was claimed to be Black, Bernardino Rivadavia. We would know that the mother of the country is called María Remedios del Valle and was a Black woman. We would know that tango is Black. We are not Europe. We live here. We are from here. We have to stop thinking white and start thinking Argentinian.
I hate to say this, but the stuff they say about Argentina is true. I studied abroad in Argentina. Before you come at me, I had a scholarship to go to school, and a university in Buenos Aires had an exchange program with my college, so that's why I went there. If you are Black, especially of a richly melanated complexion, being in Argentina makes you feel like you are in a damn zoo. I have been speaking Spanish since I was little. Cuando yo llegué a Argentina, yo ya hablaba español. Entonces no era una cuestión del idioma. But when you just go outside to the damn grocery store, the way that people look at you as if you've got 17 heads, 6 arms, and somehow you're just levitating. I have never felt so uncomfortable in my life than the 6 months I spent in Argentina. Even just in public spaces, like you hear all the time of Black folks going to China, going to, Japan, and every once in a while, someone wants to take a picture of you because they say that you look like insert any Black person. But in Argentina, cops were taking pictures of me. Random people were talking to me and stroking my skin without asking. And already as Black folks, you can tell when the fingers are creeping to when someone wants to touch your hair. But in Argentina, if I was at a bar or at a club, people would literally just brush their hand across the back of your neck, which just makes you want to evaporate and escape. And the Argentine history about how they strategically eliminated their Black population, yet they share a border with the blackest nations in the world, which is Brazil. It is so clear during the World Cup that in a Latin American nation where most of the national teams have Black folks, Argentina has nary a Negro. Argentina is not for the weak. I think for white folks, Argentina is great. Y'all can go to Argentina and love it. But if you are Black, you should go anywhere else in the world. While I'm still in touch with some of the friends I made from my study abroad program who were Argentine and weren't racist, I cannot understand or think of a circumstance where I'd want to go back to Argentina. Ever.
This is an original Ebony magazine from 1973, and inside it there's an article called Argentina, the Land of the Vanishing Blacks, and I wanted to read just a little excerpt from it so that y'all can understand that the conversations happening right now about Argentina's racism are not new, okay? This has been, they have been talking about this literally from the 60s and the 70s and way before that, and my girl Arabelle Thompson did not hold back, all right? And so these are the last 2 paragraphs of this. Lock in. Okay, so striving to compete in an economic world controlled by whites and blaming miscegenation for all of their ills has prompted South Americans to send abroad their fairest diplomats and beauty queens while running a purification contest back home. As winner, Argentina is whitest because it killed off her red men in wars of extermination, swallowed up her Black men in a flood of white foreigners, and reduced her mixed bloods to an endangered species. As winner, Argentina should be rich and powerful. For years, she was. But with the end of military rule and the second coming of Perón, who was, I think, their first president or something like that, the acknowledged white leader of a backward-colored continent is now less politically stable and economically more insecure than Brazil, once mocked as her nigger neighbor. Crazy. Some sociologists suggest that continuing miscegenation in Latin America may produce the embryo of a new universal race, that's in quotes, thus solving the race problem. With only 3% of her non-whites left, Argentina should be nearing the embryo stage. Dr. John Hope Franklin does not think so. The Argentine experience is not necessarily indicative of what might or could happen in other parts of the world. He says its historical development in terms of numbers, sex ratio, religion, etc. was determined by colonial policy as well as circumstances that made it unique even from other South American countries. Back to Arabelle Thompson, that was all his quote. Argentina is also unique in the history of her Black experience. And then She didn't hold back, y'all. And then this paragraph I really loved. I found out what he meant when I ate at a typical Argentine restaurant. Among such grilled animal tidbits as sweetbreads, kidneys, and hog's breast was a curly white item called chinchulines. I don't know what its equivalent is in any African language, but in the ghetto, we call it plain old chitlins. This is available online, y'all. Google Books has an Ebony Archive. You can find this 11-page spread on Ebony Archive on Google Books, okay? So you can read the whole thing. I can't read the whole thing to y'all. That would be literally a 20-minute video. But I'm really excited to show y'all what I've been working on with these. I have this other one from Brazil, where she's talking about the myth of racial democracy in 1965. And then I have two other ones coming from 73 as well, September 1973. And I think the other one is from either the 50s or the 60s, something like that. But yeah, y'all, this is not new. These conversations are not new. They've been happening for years, okay? Anti-Blackness in Latin America is so deeply embedded in nation building, in the literal cultural fabric that makes Latin America and Latin Americans, okay? So yeah, follow me for more if y'all want to continue learning about Black people in Latin America. I'm Afro-Colombian, so that is why I do the work.
Argentina thinks that it's not racist because Argentina thinks that there's no Black people.
In Argentina, blacks do not exist. That's a Brazilian problem. That was Carlos Menem, then president of Argentina in 1996.
It is said that it's the whitest country in South America, that it's the Paris of America, of Latin America. Argentina is not white. If not, I wouldn't be here.
But Menem didn't invent this myth. He was repeating a narrative built over a century of deliberate racial erasure, because history tells a different story. As early as 1588, enslaved Africans arrived in what is now known as Argentina. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, more than 200,000 enslaved Africans were brought to the region. A 1778 census found that approximately 1/3 of the country's population consisted of people with African descent. In 2022, less than 1% identified as Afro-descendant. So where did they go? Some historians point to disproportionate black conscription in Argentina's wars and a devastating 1871 yellow fever epidemic, though others argue these were secondary to the deliberate policy of erasure by the state. In the late 1800s, Argentina's leaders decided the country's future was European. They called the policy blanqueamiento, whitening, and actively promoted intermarriage and mass immigration to dilute the non-white population.
We don't think that one drop of blood makes us black. We think that one drop of blood makes us white.
Around 7 million subsidized immigrants, mainly from Spain and Italy, arrived between 1850 and 1950, while black and indigenous people were pushed out of the public record.
The Argentinian state created a new racial category, trigueño, that means from the color of the wheat, and that made black people invisible and indigenous people.
Erasure on paper was met with violence on the ground. Between 1878 and 1885, at least 14,000 indigenous people were killed in the so-called conquest of the desert in Patagonia. In July 1924, Argentine police and settlers massacred the Quam and Macoy people who were protesting inhumane living and working conditions on cotton plantations in Napalpi. Between 400 and 500 people were killed, and it took until 2022 for it to be called a crime against humanity.
Indigenous people, they ask them where are they from, and they're from Argentina. They're more Argentinian. In fact, they've been here before Argentina existed.
Even Argentina's most famous export carries this history of erasure.
We don't know that tango comes from Milonga, that came from African music. We don't know that. We say just it's Argentinian. We are here, that we didn't die in the wars, and we are black and we are Argentinians and Argentina is black.